Okay, my first lesson learned is that the depth of the board that I got was too narrow given these screws, these hinge screws, because these hinge screws, I'll hold them up here super close, you can see it doesn't look like it's very long, but it is going to be longer than the depth of the board, even when I account for the thickness of this hinge screw. So there's going to be a little sharp edge pointing through on the other side. So for those of you that are watching this before making your first star tracker, make sure you get the 3/4 inch plywood, because that will save you this headache. I'm not going to worry about it too much. Basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to mark the holes, and then I'm going to drill these through, and once they're drilled through, that little point, I have a hasp that I'm going to use and basically sand it down so that there's no sharp points. Then I'll probably just tape it off with a piece of rubber or something like that, something to make that smooth and nice so it doesn't cut on anything. But the next step, now that I've got these boards down, and you notice I'm not using anything fancy, I'm just using a ladder here. Basically I'm going to mark the holes for these hinges, and you want to make sure that this rolled part of the hinge is on the outside, and you just want to mark the holes so that when it closes, it can close up nice and tight, so it's not easy to store and out of the way. So you want to make sure that part is on the outside. So I'm going to position these. I'm going to mark some holes. I'll do a little pre-drilling, and then I'll go ahead and put the screws in place. Okay, because I figured this isn't going to be as noisy, I'd do another little segment in here to show you that I've got the markings made for the holes that are going to attach the hinges, and I've got my drill bit inside my cordless screwdriver, and I'm basically just going to drill a little pilot hole going down in a little bit. And I'm doing it because these are kind of near the edges and I don't want the wood to split. So if you're ever drilling near the edge of wood, you want to make sure you do a little pre-drilled hole so that the screw doesn't split the wood down. So I'm going to take this, and I made this about half a size smaller than the screw itself, and I'm just going to put this dead center, and I'm going to drill a hole, and it helps if you actually put this the right way. So I'm going to drill a hole, and do another one, and you notice I'm just using a ladder to hold things in place. You don't need any huge fancy workshop. I definitely don't have a fancy workshop. And do the same thing on the other one. Now I've got a little gap in the ladder here, so I'm going to go ahead and just drill this from right here. But generally you want to make sure that you are drilling not through into something underneath, because you don't want to put holes where you don't want them. So you see, it's pretty straightforward to do. And I'm just going to do the same thing. I'm going to angle that just a little bit so I can keep this mostly on there. I'm just going to do a pre-drilled hole. Like that. So now those are in place. I'm done with this drill because I can hand screw these in now. This is probably one of the most important parts of this project, and getting these hinges so that they will move loosely and freely, and you don't want any constricting or binding. So what I've done is I've gone ahead and drilled them in on this side, and I want to make sure that I'm lining them up correctly. So I've got this exactly where I want it, and instead of trying to measure, because you can always make mistakes with measuring, now that I know they're lined up perfectly, I'm going to put a little mark here, I'm going to put a little mark here. I'm going to keep things really stable, because I want these hinges to move freely. Basically what's going to happen is a screw is going to be on this one end, and it's going to push this end up as the camera moves across the sky. So just one little quick nugget tip type thing for you inside this larger video after I put everything together, to make sure you do the hinge correctly. You're going to want to make sure you do that correctly, otherwise it can bind up and it won't move for you. You'll end up shaking your unit and you're going to get blur. So you want to make sure that your hinges move freely. Always test it before you take it out too. We'll do that in just a minute here. Okay, so I've basically got the two sides of the door screwed together and on the hinge now, so you can see that it opens pretty smoothly, pretty cleanly. It's going to be able to get pushed up relatively easily by the screw that I'm going to be mounting in over here. So basically you're going to have your ball mount up here, your tripod sitting under here, there's going to be a screw here that pushes up as I turn it. It's going to push this up as the camera moves to track the stars at night. Pretty cool. I'll be back in just a minute and we'll get ready to drill the holes that are going to mount it to the tripod mount the ball head up here, and then the measurement screw. This one is really important because you want to get your measurements exactly right, otherwise it'll be off. So I'll be back in just a minute.